Hi class, in lesson 3.6 you will be learning how to add and subtract fractions with like and unlike denominators. Learning targets for today: write number sentences to represent 1, create models to represent adding and subtracting of fractions, and then add and subtract fractions with like and unlike denominators. Key terms in lesson 3.6: common denominator and least common denominator, abbreviated LCD. Turn to page 168, problem 1, number sentences for one whole. There are many ways to represent one whole. The diagram shows two different number sentences to represent one whole. We have 1/2 plus 1/2 is equal to one whole, and we have 3/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 is equal to one whole. It will be very helpful if you have your fraction strips for this part and other parts of the lesson for today. Answer number 1, letters A through F, with your group members. For number 1, here are sample answers of addition sentences that are equal to 1 using your fraction strips. If you have a fraction sentence that you put down that you do not see here, please check with me if needed to make sure that your addition sentence is equal to one whole. Two or more fractions have a common denominator if the denominators in each fraction are the same. A common denominator is a whole number that is a common multiple of the denominators of the fractions. The least common denominator, or LCD, is the least common multiple of the denominators of two or more fractions. Answer number 2, letters A through F, with your group members. For number 2, here are your new fraction sentences for letters A through C that all have a common denominator. Please check those over with your group members. Here are your new fraction sentences for letters D through F that have common denominators. Please check these over with your group members as well. And remember, if you had a fraction sentence that was not on the previous page, please make sure that you check with me in order to make sure that you rewrote the fraction sentence with common denominators correctly if needed. Turn to page 170, problem 2, a trail trip. The teachers at Riverside Middle School decide to make trail mix for an upcoming field trip to the Natural History Museum. They have decided on 3 different recipes. Answer letter A and letter B with your group members. For number 1, letter A, the teachers will need 1/2 cup of raisins for the sweet and nutty trail mix and 1/3 cup of raisins for the fruity trail mix. For number 1, letter B, no, you cannot determine the total amount of raisins without having the same denominator. Turn to page 171. You can use other strips to help you solve the problem from part A. Consider the fraction strip model and the corresponding fraction sentence. Answer letter C and letter D with your group members. For letter C, 5/6 is the fraction that represents this length. And for letter D, 1/2 is equivalent to 3/6. 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. So now that you have determined the equivalent fractions with common denominators, you can simply add the numerators to calculate the sum. When fractions do not share a common denominator, they are sometimes called unlike fractions. Answer number 2 with your group members. To add unlike fractions or fractions that do not share a common denominator, you must rewrite one or both of the fractions using a common denominator. Then you can add the numerators of each fraction, keeping the common denominator. Turn to page 173, problem 3, what is the difference? You can also use fraction strips to help you determine the difference in a problem. Consider the following question. Answer letters A through C with your group members. For number 1, letter A, first you had to determine that you were taking 1/8 away from 3/4. Here is what your sketch could look like in order to help you determine the difference in the problem. The math sentence that you should have for letter B is 3/4 minus 1/8. Just like with adding fractions that have unlike denominators, when you are subtracting, you need to make sure that we have common denominators. So you come up with an equivalent fraction in order to calculate the difference. 6/8 minus 1/8 will give you 5/8 for your difference. For letter C, there is 5/8 cups more pumpkin seeds in the sweet and nutty trail mix than in the popcorn trail mix. Turn to page 176. Answer number 2, letters A through G with your group members. Let's walk through the steps together. For number 2, letter A, the first thing you have to do is determine what the LCD is. It would be 30. Then we have to find an equivalent fraction for each of the fractions in the addition problem. If my LCD is 30, I'm going to multiply 1/6 by a fraction form of 1, which is 5/5, to get 5/30. I'm going to multiply 2/5 by a fraction form of 1, which is 6/6, to get 12/30. Now I can add the numerators together. 17/30 is my fraction, and it is in simplest form because the only factor that the numerator and denominator have in common is 1. Following the same steps for letters B through G, your LCD is 12, your fraction is 1/4. For letter C, your LCD is 12, your fraction is 1/3. For letter D, your LCD is 15, your fraction is 1/5. For letter E, your LCD is 40, your fraction is 21/40. For letter F, your LCD is 55, your fraction is 1 2/55. And for letter G, your LCD is 18 and your fraction is 5/18. Answer number 3 with your group members. You are going to determine the LCD by finding the least common multiple of the two denominators that you are given. Answer number 4 with your group members. For number 4, yes, the group is correct. The LCD of the two fractions is 12. 2/3 is equal to 8/12, and 1/4 is equal to 3/12. So therefore, 8/12 plus 3/12 is equal to 11/12. This will conclude lesson 3.6 on adding and subtracting fractions with like and unlike denominators. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.